Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let us start with today's analysis video for 20th of June 2023. So firstly, the High Court admits the review plea by the meaty body on the scheduled tribe status. So this is in the context of what is going on in the state of Manipur. So meaty body, basically meaties, it forms the majority in the state. And apart from this, like every single day we are getting updates, what are the changes, what is going on. So the background, it has already been discussed, like the ethnic composition of the state, and then you need to find out like if there have been similar incidents or the committees which have been formulated and respectively their recommendations. Apart from this, we have also looked into what is the role of the central government if there is any internal disturbance in any particular state in Indian territory. Then here you can see that clearly president's rule is the last option in Manipur. So several people in the government and BJP, they've said that president's rule was only a last option. The idea was to exhaust other available measures first. So president's rule is the last option here. Now you need to obviously find out all the important, the basic details about the president's rule, what does Article 356 has to say, and not just president's rule, but also about the national emergency and the financial emergency as well. So that's there. Apart from this, Punjab steps in to help Karnataka with its free rice scheme. So here you can like see this as an example of cooperative federalism. So AAP Karnataka takes the initiative to arrange for the procurement ahead of the launch on July 1. So Congress government in Karnataka is struggling to procure rice for its ambitious Anbhagya scheme. So here, AAP government in Punjab, it agreed in principle to supply the requisite quantum of rice to Karnataka. So under this scheme, state it plans to enhance the free rice which is given per person in the BPL card from 5 kg to 10 kg. So this is an upgrade, and this is estimated to cost the exchequer around rupees 840 crores monthly. So Supreme Court is going to hear the pleas on central forces deployment in the state of West Bengal regarding the successful carrying out of the local body elections. So here, firstly, we need to know that it is the State Election Commission that conducts the local body elections in a particular state. So here, since the situation on the ground in West Bengal, it is kind of disturbed, and to ensure free and fair elections, so here the High Court had ordered to deploy the central forces, but then several pleas were filed against this judgment, and now the matter is there in Supreme Court. So archaeologists, they find the Mesolithic era rock painting in Andhra's Guntur, and here is a picture as well. So painting of a man tilling the land found at the cave shelters in Guntur district in Andhra Pradesh. So this is believed to be Mesolithic period rock painting depicting a person tilling a piece of land. And apart from this, obviously it is the Archaeological Survey of India. Then so while surveying the area, the lower river Krishna Valley to ascertain the architectural features of shrines, he identified a new prehistoric rock painting on the walls and ceilings of natural rock shelters on a hillock at Orvakallu. So after an intensive exploration, it was noticed that these were shelters for prehistoric humans who lived at this place. So among these five naturally formed caves, two are embellished with distinguished depictions of the rock paintings on the back walls and ceilings executed by people of Mesolithic age, roughly from 5000 BC. So that is the period. And then ochre is a pigment which is composed of clay, sand, and ferric oxide. So ochre colored pottery is also an important topic. Then kaolinite is a soft, earthy, and usually white mineral which is produced by the chemical weathering of the aluminum silicate mineral like feldspar. So through these paintings, we get to know about the cultural life of the people, their social life. And one of the paintings depicted a man catching the wild goat with his left hand while wielding a hook-like implement to control it. So there are different paintings which have been found. Coming to the editorial page, so here, like yesterday, we took up this topic in detail about India-US relationship. So India and America, they are BFFs, like best friends forever, and each needs the other than ever before today, united by the powerful mutual interests that we share. So India took 63 years to reach the $1 trillion GDP, 7 years to hit $2 trillion, and 3 years to hit $3 trillion, and is estimated to reach $25 trillion by 2047 when we complete 100 years of independence. So in 1700, India, it accounted for about 35% of global GDP, making it the world's biggest. And by the time of economic crisis in 1991, it was down to almost 1%. You can imagine how sharply it has reduced from 35% share to just 1%. And today it is at around 4 to 5%, and it is rising. So definitely to increase it further, we need America's capital and their technology, be it militarily or non-militarily. So by 2030, India will have a working population of 1 billion, which is more than the entire G8 population. Today, it has internet coverage, which is almost equal to it. And as recent as 8 years ago, India's per capita mobile data consumption was one of the lowest in the world. And today it is ranked at 1. So a green-friendly success story. So let us look at the infrastructure story. So which is a significant success and its multiplier effects definitely they exist, and the benefits they will reverberate in the next 5 to 10 years for these large, long gestation projects. So infrastructure spend, it has shorter, while the fiscal prudence, it has been maintained at the same time. So fiscal expansion and yet fiscal prudence, they're very tough act to pull off, and the finance ministry has done well at this front. Then talking about the project on Pragati, or the proactive governance and the timely implementation, makes the officials issue the long pending government orders or clearances and generally positively smoothens the system to de-bottleneck the infrastructure sector, because we are seeing a lot of delays specifically in the infrastructure sector. Apart from this, and then further, for the first time, the private sector, it was allowed into the commercial coal mining, leading to Odisha, West Bengal, and Chhattisgarh. All the non-NDA states reaping huge rewards by this decision. So while no new oil exploration contracts, they were awarded between 2010 and 17, by 2023, and 5 lakh square kilometers will be under exploration contracts. Then a boost to transparency and efficiency is another focus area. So money for the McGain infrastructure spend was also made possible due to another unspoken reform of the public financial management system. So it is a centralized transaction system to improve the transparency, accountability, and efficiency in government financial spending and to plug the waste and the leakages. Then it has driven what was often considered impossible to do, which is a centralized core database integration of the different platforms with banks, thereby enabling the direct payments to the beneficiaries, reducing the time and the cost while enhancing the efficiency. So here we have the data for the same. Likewise, while impressive progress it has been made on road construction across India, what is not much talked about in the Parivahan system, and that is a one-stop system for the transport across 1,400 transport offices, enabling leakage-proof revenue collection. So India gets $100 billion in remittances. Again, we made a new record here globally, and at around 20 million is a tad less than the overall global migrant population, about 280 million. So India's global rise is largely because of the Prime Minister's personal outreach and ability to build the strategic friendships with the world leaders quickly and with mutual value. So India needs to give up its non-alignment hang-up of the past and measure each situation on its merit and the national interest, like it did with the Russian oil. So in this case, India took the decision independently, and India got the oil at a competitive price and did the deal and refined and then sold a made in India product back to the Europeans. So that's how we utilize this opportunity. And now there is still much to be done. So indeed, a lot remains to be done. India needs greater digitization of internet processes, better services delivery using India Stack. We need to revive the stalled agricultural reforms, build upon the supply chain capabilities, move manufacturing to India as companies they look for other homes outside China. Then we need to carry out deeper judicial reforms, to name a few. So these are some of the more potential areas where we can improve and we have to improve. So India has around $290 billion balance of trade deficit, which is around 9% of the GDP and 2 times of its pre-COVID-19 highs. Almost 50% of India is still stuck in agriculture. We need to work here. Manufacturing remains stuck at 14 to 15% of the GDP. So we need reforms in the manufacturing sector as well. So here again, the role of US capital and technology becomes important. So India and the US, they are friends but not allies, and Pakistan is an ally and it is not a friend. So these are the words of Stephen Cohen. So the journey from friendship to ally is a short one, and it needs to be walked by both sides here and now. Why not start with an easy one? So the US allows the completion of immigration formalities in 15 locations worldwide, including Abu Dhabi. So as visa issues, they will be on the table this time. Why not include Bengaluru, Mumbai, Delhi to this list, which will make travel so much easier for the average citizen. So that's how the author, who's an IAS officer, ends the discussion. So there are a lot of things to be taken from this article, and you can note them accordingly as per their importance and the relevance. So free and fair elections to the local bodies, they are not possible without peace. So obviously this is in context to the situation in the state of West Bengal. So local body elections in West Bengal scheduled for 8th of July, they have yet again brought the political violence in the state to the forefront. So the State Election Commission and the West Bengal government, they have approached the Supreme Court of India challenging the Calcutta High Court order directing the deployment of the central forces in all the districts. And they say that the state government and the State Election Commission, they do not have enough resources at their disposal to conduct this mammoth exercise across the state on a single day. So therefore, the deployment of the central forces should have been welcomed, particularly when the High Court has directed that the cost of the deployment will be borne by the center and not the state government. So even the governor of West Bengal has turned the spotlight on deteriorating law and order situation and nudged the state election commission and the state government to take complaints of violence seriously. So he's also carefully avoided a confrontation with the elected government. And West Bengal was among the first states to have a three-tier panchayat system aimed at democratic decentralization. So it's for all the stakeholders, including political parties, to ensure that the exercise of electing panchayat functionaries does not descend into lawlessness and chaos. Then refugees as assets to their new countries. So they must be seen as assets and not burden. So definitely a very important topic. So refugee youth wish to be self-reliant and they are eager to use their talents to contribute to the communities hosting them. So yes, even they hold a lot of potential. So as we commemorate yet another World Refugee Day on 20th of June, that's today, we honor the courage and resilience of 103 million individuals who have endured forced displacement due to conflicts and unrest worldwide. So this day is a reminder of our collective responsibility as global citizens and a call for engagement and empathy. So definitely this is an important topic from GS4 ethics as well. So it is a day to promote solidarity between communities, most importantly to reflect on the importance of welcoming refugees and displaced persons into our communities. So when we talk about the current global conflicts, which includes the war in Ukraine, situation in Myanmar, and then the war in Sudan, there among others. The protracted situations in Afghanistan and then even in Somalia, they present an unprecedented challenge. So definitely with these wars which are going on and the volatile situation, so we see that the number of refugees going up. So these crises, they extend to our region, but many individuals, they have been uprooted from their homes. And sadly, South and Southeast Asia, they are also not immune to the challenges of displacement. So India is home to some 250,000 forcibly displaced persons, with women and children constituting half of that population. So India continues to graciously host and assist the refugees and asylum seekers within its territory, which is a testament to our shared humanity. So we thank the government of India for its steadfast support in generously hosting the refugees throughout its history in a manner that deserves to be applauded and emulated. So despite India not being signatory to the UN Convention on Refugees, how do we handle this crisis-like situation is very important. So refugees they want opportunities and not handouts. So today we are reminded the story of a young Afghan refugee, Ahmed. The names used here, they're like not the real names. So who sought refuge in India, fearing persecution in his home country. So after pursuing his education through distance learning program from the National Institute of Open Learning Schooling, he is now teaching refugee and the local children and aspires to serve the community that uplifted him from being nobody to a valuable member of the society. So basically, that is one opportunity area that when we talk about the education facilities and the services. So the refugees definitely they can enhance, improve their skills by engaging and getting enrolled in the National Institute of Open Schooling and through obviously distance learning. So for refugee youths, it is not just a matter of talent, it is a matter of prospects. They want opportunities and not handouts. They wish to be self-reliant and they're eager to use their talents and passions. So we need to dismantle the barriers. Refugees and asylum seekers, they encounter a myriad of obstacles like the legal recognition, the challenges in obtaining the government-issued documents, which hinder their access to the essential services, including the financial support and the healthcare. So we need to ensure that the refugees are able to overcome this obstacle. So it's incumbent upon us to dismantle these barriers and ensure that they are afforded equal opportunities, be it in employment, education, housing, and healthcare. So our efforts in creating inclusive society must cater to the unique needs of refugee youth. So to ensure that truly no one is left behind, we should engage with and include youth, especially the refugee youth, in the realization of sustainable development agenda. So you can see how things have been connected in this article. Then addressing the rising number of the forcibly displaced is an urgent moral imperative that demands our collective action. So the Global Compact on Refugees acknowledges the magnitude of the displacement crisis and calls for solidarity through a whole of society approach. So I'm just highlighting the keywords. You can note down them and moving forward. So the Global Compact on Refugees tries to enhance international response, support the host countries, promote self-reliance, and explore long-term solutions such as resettlement and safe returns. So here we embrace the principle of equitable burden sharing and fulfill our responsibilities to refugees, ensuring their well-being and the well-being of their generous host communities. So yesterday we saw a piece of article, which is again, it was like in the context of the drugs and the quality. Again, they're coming under question, the ones that we have supplied to Sri Lanka. So India's regulators, they must ensure the quality and the safety of the drugs. So yesterday we were talking in this context. So when we talk about the anesthetic drugs made in India causing deaths are a first in the recent past, the eye drops, then they were causing infections in the USA, blindness, and even deaths, they were also reported. And then when we talk about the incidence of even the cough syrups, so the Indian drugs, the quality and safety is coming under question. So the series of adverse reports against the drugs which are produced in India began last year when WHO linked the deaths of at least 70 children in Gambia from acute kidney injury to the cough syrups that were exported by India. So here it is basically talking about the incidence of the cough syrups. So conduct of the Indian drug regulator over since WHO first raised a red flag in October last year has been on predictable lines. Even after serious violations, it gave a clean sheet to the company that had supplied the drugs to Gambia and then went on to the offensive to fault the global health body. So WHO held its ground and drugs regulators, its stand was exposed. So test results from Switzerland and Ghana confirmed the presence of toxic chemicals in the cough syrup. So except for some customary inspections, the Indian drug regulator has so far failed to institute measures to make sure that drugs produced in India for the export and domestic use, they are safe. So India, it can continue to be the pharmacy of the global south only if the regulator begins to behave like a watchdog to ensure drug safety and not as a facilitator for the pharma industry. So since obviously India has huge potential when we talk about the generic drugs, so that can really cost us because that is definitely the opportunity we have. But at the same time, it's important to ensure the quality and the safety of the drugs that we are actually producing. So this is an important topic from science. So phonons on the chopping block. So here are the sound particles quantum 2 or not? So quantum computers, they use qubits as the basic unit of information. So physicists, they have found that packets of vibrational energy, which are called phonons, they behave like packets of light energy using a new kind of beam splitters. So here, this could technically qualify them to act as qubits as well. So that's what the whole article is based upon. So quantum computers and artificial intelligence are two of the emerging areas of interest in the realm of computing. Recently, IBM it published a paper in which it claimed to have demonstrated that a quantum computer could solve a useful problem that today's conventional computers they can't, a result which is merited by the concerns that their computations might become too unreliable when they also become complicated. So obviously there are some concerns also associated with their usage and reliance over them. So what are qubits? These are like basically the quantum computers, they use qubits as their basic units of information. So QU stands for quantum and then bits. So qubit, it can be a particle like an electron, a collection of particles also, or a quantum system engineered to behave like a particle. The premise of quantum computing is that information it can be encoded in some property of the particle like an electron's spin, and then it can be processed using these peculiar abilities. So the forms of quantum computing, they use other units of information. For example, linear optical quantum computing, they uses photons and the particles of light as qubits. So just like the different pieces of information, they can be combined and processed by encoding them on electrons and then having electrons interact in different ways. Even in this case, it offers to use the optical equipments like mirrors, lenses, splitters, waveplates with photons to process information. So now let's understand what are phonons. So physicists they thus wondered whether they can use phonons as qubits or not. So photons, they are packets of light energy. Similarly, phonons, they are packets of vibrational energy. So therefore, the question is, can we build a quantum computer whose information unit is colloquially speaking sound? So researchers, they can manipulate the electrons using the electric currents, magnetic fields, and photons with the mirror lenses, and they needed new tools to manipulate the phonons. So to this end, in the new study, researchers from the University of Chicago, they have reported developing an acoustic beam splitter. So beam splitters, they are used widely in optics research. So India gets INS Kirpan to Vietnam, focuses on enhancing defense relations and security. So Uniform Civil Code, which is mentioned in Article 44 of the Constitution, is a part of the directive principles of state policy. So the Union Defense Minister, he questioned the controversy being created over the Uniform Civil Code, saying it was part of the directive principles of state policy, which are laid down in the Constitution. And so right now we have Uniform Civil Code applicable, which is working in the state of Goa. So Muslim bodies, they raise the question about the Uniform Civil Code being against the spirit of the Constitution. But even that is also questionable because Uniform Civil Code is mentioned in the Constitution. So if it is mentioned in the Constitution, so how can it can go against the spirit of the Constitution? So UN rights chiefs, they seek to establish presence in China and India. So United Nations human rights chiefs, they called for a greater political support for his office as he seeks to expand its work by establishing the first-time presence in China and India. So Ladakh leaders, they meet the union minister and they demand statehood. So the delegation objects to the composition of a high-powered committee in its interaction with the Nityanand Rai. They also seek protections under the constitution provided to the tribal area. So there are some demands of the people from Ladakh. Coming to the world page, so here Chinese premier visits Germany amid the growing mistrust with the West. So that's how even China is basically trying to engage more with the Western world. UN adopts first ever agreement to protect the marine life in the high seas. So this is an important news article. So members of the United Nations, they adopted the first ever treaty to protect marine life in the high seas, with the UN chiefs hailing the historic agreement as giving the ocean a fighting chance. So treaty had been under discussion for more than 20 years as efforts to reach an agreement had repeatedly stalled. So US and China, they agreed to stabilize relations amid tension. So Blinken says he agreed on the need to stabilize the ties, but was clear-eyed on what are the differences that exist between the two, whether the two countries they can find the right way to get along bears in the future and destiny of humanity. So China's leader told the visiting US top diplomat, Europe is the world's fastest warming continent. So that is definitely very clear from the incidences of the deadly heat waves going on in Europe, which is driven by climate change. So it is like fastest warming continent with some 2.3 degrees Celsius hotter last year than in the pre-industrial times. So droughts, then record sea surface temperatures and glacier melt. They are among the effects which are laid out in the report of WMO. So WMO bodies, that is also very important. Then, as we are celebrating this year to the International Year for Millets, so Finance Minister calls for efforts to push the farmers to cultivate millets. So the millets, they are climate resilient crops. When we talk about the nutritional value, even that stands at very high level. So they are beneficial both for the farmers and even for the consumers. So the finance minister urges NABARD to increase the land area cultivated with millets and also advises improving rural income and protecting the returns of the farmers already who are growing millets. So basically this can help the farmers economically as well. Coming to the Mint newspaper, so Prime Minister Modi's US visit, deals, hopes, and the challenges. So, what is the five-pronged agenda? We've already taken up that. What will be the key outcomes? Okay, so let's leave it here. We'll focus upon the actual outcomes. What does the visit mean for India-US ties? So visit, it comes at a time of significant optimism in both the countries about the trajectory of the bilateral ties. And Prime Minister Modi will become one of the few world leaders alongside the figures like Nelson Mandela to address the joint sitting of US Congress twice. So why do these deals actually matter to India so much? So because India has long struggled to make advanced fighter jet engines, the deal with the General Electric, it is expected to involve significant transfer of technology. So this could allow India to become one of the just few countries with the ability to manufacture advanced jet engines. And currently, there are only four countries, which includes US, Russia, UK, and France. They have this capability. So that is going to be a significant step. So, are there likely to be any sticking points or not? So, according to experts, India's refusal to condemn Russia for its ongoing war in Ukraine is likely to come up in talks. Then some reports indicate that India's record in religious freedom and minorities that may be raised by America. So that's there. And India may raise USA's $450 million support package for Pakistan to upgrade its F-16s. So this decision it had garnered considerable public attention and criticism in India. So quote of the day, we have players flooding the market with huge number of planes. I just hope that they're doing this right. So this is from the CEO of Qatar Airways. Coming to the economy page, joint statutory audit will need liability framework. So NFRA chairperson says the move, it should be able to fix accountability. So joint statutory audits suggested by expert panels to improve the quality of the audits. It will require well-defined framework, setting out the role and the liability of each independent auditor. Then you can find out more about the basic details, the background about the National Financial Reporting Authority. So we need to have a proper framework with clearly mentioned roles, responsibilities and duties, and obviously the liabilities. So the demand for watertight audits, it has grown following a number of high-profile bankruptcies, including that of the non-bank lender ILNFS. So a joint audit, it would involve two audit firms bringing together their resources, and government is currently working on a set of amendments of the Companies Act, including on provisions relating to the audit framework. So we need to fix the accountability, and companies, they are at liberty to appoint a branch auditor where it has one or more branches and requires an auditor to go over the accounts of that branch. In the Financial Express newspaper. So, according to experts, the market momentum is set to pick up the pace. So, the momentum of the markets is being driven by expectations of superior long-term growth. And as long as India it can deliver on the earnings, governance, and green transformation indices, they will continue to deliver. So, here we're talking about the capital market. Then, from the CEO of the markets, alternate strategies. So he says that we expect RBI to cut the interest rates and the earnings growth momentum to pick up in the second half of this year. So that's there. So 500 jet deal with the Airbus pegged at $50 billion. So Indigo seals the biggest aircraft purchase. So that is for us, the topic that is important is the future prospects for the Indian's aviation sector and how basically we can expand the sector. Then when we talk about the airfares, so recently, a few days back, we were seeing that government taking or was ensuring that the airfares, they do not rise much. And there have been talks going on about devising one standard formula to calculate the prices of the air tickets. So when we talk about India-US trade ties, so trade is a strong pillar of the relationship between the two countries. US and India, they have a strong trade and investment partnership. Bilateral trade between the two is at $200 billion. So since we are getting scattered articles regarding India-US relationships, so you can club all this information at one place so that you are, easily able to comprehend the things. And US to make a fresh pitch for India to join IPEF trade talks. So India-US trade has been given in this data, the services trade, the merchandise trade, FDI data is also here. So data localization, digital service tax to figure during the Prime Minister's visit. So Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, and also join the trade part of the negotiations in the 40-nation bloc. So these are going to be some basically endeavors which USA would want, it would want India to join them. So India, it has opted out of the trade part of the negotiations of IPEF, which accounts for about 40% of the world GDP, 28% of the world's trade in goods and services. So it has 14 members. All of them are listed here. So it is like IPEF has been launched by USA to counter China's influence in Southeast Asia and South Asia. So apart from trade, it is negotiating the supply chains, clean energy, decarbonization, infrastructure, tax, and anti-corruption. So 41% of the miners they feel won't survive 10 years as per a survey. So top 40 miners to see 9% fall in revenue and 20% fall in the coal revenue in this year. So 35% said they will be highly exposed to climate risks in the coming years. $450 billion green bonds have been issued in the previous year. So need to set up capital expenditure on critical minerals and global alliances. 73% they see that local skills gap, they are the biggest barrier to adopting new technology. So these are some of the challenges, be it the climate change or even the finance related area. And then obviously the skills gap that exists. Coming to the Indian Express newspaper, so Roz Sinha, who headed the operations, is now the agency's new chief. So the appointments committee of the cabinet has approved the appointment of senior IPS officer Ravi Sinha as the chief of India's External Intelligence Agency Research and Analysis Wing, that is RAW, for a period of 2 years. So the appointments committee of the cabinet has approved the appointment of 59-year-old Sinha, who's 1988 batch IPS officer from Chhattisgarh. So Yoga for Vasudev Kutumbakam, India's heritage for the global well-being, International Day of Yoga that will be celebrated tomorrow. So yoga demonstration will be led by Vice President, and yoga demonstration will be led by Prime Minister Modi at the UN headquarters, New York, tomorrow. So yoga from Arctic to Antarctic, yoga at the Indian Arctic Station Himadri, where also will be celebrating the International Yoga Day, and even in Antarctica at Bharti Station, also in countries falling along and near the prime meridian line. Then in the ocean ring, yoga at the Indian naval bases, Coast Guard, ports and marine vessels of the friendly foreign countries. Then you get health and wellness centers, Ayush Grams, Amrit Sarovars, Panchayats, and common service centers. Then Yoga Bharatmala and Yoga Sagarmala along the coastal areas, and yoga at the UN member countries. So be a part of the global movement for health and wellness through yoga. So definitely it holds the key, because we've been talking so much about the rise of the non-communicable diseases and the potential that yoga holds in healing them. Apart from that, the diseases from which we call the lifestyle disorders, that is also on the rise. Or whenever we talk about maintaining the work-life balance, even like yoga plays a very important role when we talk about the inner peace. So that's important. So yoga embodies unity of mind and body, thought and action, restraint and fulfillment, harmony between man and nature, and a holistic approach to health and well-being. So on the explained page, Gita Press Gorakhpur, it is the century-old winner of the Gandhi Peace Prize, is the world's biggest publisher of Hindu religious texts. We had a look at it yesterday, that the Gandhi Peace Prize has been awarded to the Gita Press based in Gorakhpur. So the publisher of the Hindu religious texts, Gita Press is the world's largest publishing houses, including copies of its monthly magazine Kalyan. It has so far sold over 93 crore copies of over 1,850 religious books in 15 languages, including English, Urdu, and Nepali. So it has sold more than 3.5 crore copies of Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas and 16 crore copies of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So the Gita Press website says that its main objective is to promote and spread the principles of Sanatan Dharma through highly subsidized publications of Gita, Ramayana, Upanishads, Purans, discourses of eminent saints, and other character-building books and magazines. So here in detail, we're talking about the India-US trade and the strategy. So at the heart of the Indo-US strategic partnership is deepening economic engagement and a resolve on both the sides to elevate the bilateral relationship to a global strategic partnership. So when we try to understand the bilateral trade, here we have the data. So India's exports to the US total we are having at like 102.35 US billion dollars. So when we have a look at the trajectory from 2018, so you can see it has been rising. Only in 2020 it dipped. That is obviously because of COVID-19, but we have like crossed the pre-pandemic levels. Then USA's exports to India, even they have been climbing, but right now they are on a downturn, we can say, and lower than the pre-pandemic levels. So total bilateral trade, it stands at $160 billion. So we can say that India, it enjoys trade surplus when we talk about the bilateral trade with US, or we can say that the trade is in favor of India. So that is one takeaway. So when we talk about the strategic underpinnings between the two countries, the flag bearer of the strategic engagement is Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, the Quad, which began in 2004. Then I2U2, which is a grouping of India, Israel, US, and UAE, is focused on joint investments and new initiatives in water, energy, transportation, space, health, food security. Then recently we had this initiative on critical and emerging technologies between the two countries. So the most important is the possibility of India getting aligned for a more central role in the global electronic supply chain, especially the possibility of potential convergence among the chip manufacturing incentive scheme that has been launched by India. And the defense sector is likely to see multiple pacts building on the bilateral cooperation framework that is already in place. And then cooperation in areas like armored vehicles, ammunition, and air combat that could include a deal for India. Talking about the economic engagement, so at the heart of the Indo-US strategic partnership is the deepening economic engagement, and it is founded on the shared democratic values and increasing convergence of the interest on regional and the global issues. So the two countries have touched a record of $191 billion, making the US India's largest trading partner. And for India, the favorable balance of trade position with the US is comforting. So given that it has an adverse balance of trade equation with the majority of its major trading partners. Then American companies have invested around $60 billion in India in sectors like manufacturing to telecommunications, consumer goods to aerospace. Talking about some headwinds, so even they are also mentioned. So here, among the outstanding trade issues that require resolution are the visa delays and revoking of India's trade benefits under the Generalized System of Preferences program in 2019. Then seemingly contradiction in India being a key partner of the US, even as it ramps up the procurement of discounted crude oil from Russia. So that's there, that needs to be resolved. Then New Delhi will likely to be nudged to join the trade pillar of the US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. So even India here, like right now we have stayed away from IPEF that we've already seen. And there is a growing disquiet with the sectors of Union government over India not finding an entry into the Minerals Security Partnership. So again, that is a US-led partnership to secure the supply chains of critical minerals that is aimed at reducing the dependency on China. So what are critical minerals? You can find out more about it. So surplus liquidity in the banking, it drops 43% due to advanced tax payments. So the payment of advance tax, corporation or the individuals are required to pay advance tax if their estimated tax liability for the year is rupees 10,000 or more, but any individual or corporation without income is not liable to pay the same. So that is one of the factors which influences the surplus liquidity in the system. So the net direct tax mop up, it grew by 11% so far in the current financial year. So Bombay High Court stays the RBI's master circular till September 11. So the master circular that permitted the banks to declare any account as a fraud account without giving a hearing. So this is what the master circular is talking about. So this has been stayed by the Bombay High Court. So in September, the High Court it will hear the petitions against this RBI's decision under RBI's directions of 2016. So a division bench of the justice, they were hearing a batch of petitions, including those that were filed by Jet Airways founder. So they say that this decision of RBI is against the principles of natural justice. So the said circulars, it allowed banks to make full use of the Central Fraud Registry for timely identification, control, reporting, and mitigation of the risks which are associated with the fraud. So as per this master circular, once the bank it classifies an account as fraud, it has to report the same to the Central Repository of Information on large credits platform to alert other banks. So Finance Minister suggests special outreach camps in credit deficient districts. So basically, this is, we can say, one of the measures even in the context of financial inclusion. So it can be interpreted in that way as well. So opt for less water guzzling crops. So here she's been talking about promoting the cultivation of millets. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us in today's analysis session, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and also hit the like button for this video.